Let's drive these Imperials back out of Gallia! Squad 7, move out!
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Valkyria Chronicles PC port rundown. To those not in the know, this game was a PS3 exclusive for the longest time with no plans of multi-platform compatibility whatsoever. With roughly 6 years on the market though, Sega out of the blue decided to bring this harrowing wartime story to the Steam marketplace, with some engine enhancements and full DLC included. Given the game's age, a review of Valkyria Chronicles would be somewhat dated, but exploring the PC port's engine is an interesting prospect based on Sega's past PC ports. Valkyria Chronicles' optimization is strange, both as a positive and a negative. The system requirements for the game recommend a dual-core processor and only 3GB of RAM, but when I ran it on max settings it only used 15% of my processing power and 200,000 kilobytes of RAM. It was comforting to know that I could both stream this game and bump the stream quality up 2 levels without suffering on any fronts, so that's a nice testament to the game's optimization. Presentation, however, is odd. Valkyria Chronicles is split into 2 segments, story and gameplay. The cutscenes in the game are all at 1080p and play at 30 frames per second, which isn't bad. The gameplay, however, can run at your monitor's refresh rate and hit 4K resolutions if your PC is strong enough. This shift in framerate is not bad, but it's also not great. The framerate shift feels jarring at times, and the use of pre-rendered cutscenes also takes up a hefty 25GB of hard drive space. The boosted framerate on gameplay also has a strange glitch. All tanks and shock troopers now have their damage rates on reaction fire doubled because that was apparently the only thing tied to framerate in terms of gameplay. However, in some weird psychotic manner, I'm actually okay with this. In the PS3 version, shock troopers were underpowered compared to scouts and snipers, and this glitch inadvertently makes these units more appealing and makes some missions tougher but not outright unwinnable. This glitch is remedied by fixing the frame rate to 30 frames per second, but it's still weird that the glitch is still there and players must cut down on their visual fidelity to remedy this. Hopefully this issue will be patched out in the near future, but aside from that the game engine is very elegantly handled. The options menu, however, is very bare bones. Video settings only have options for resolution, full screen modes, vertical sync, and an FPS toggle between 30 and your monitor's refresh rate. This is probably done to not compromise the game's art direction, but it still feels underwhelming. Luckily, the game runs well enough even on outdated hardware, so any consumer who has remotely invested in gaming hardware won't need to edit the game's options anyways. For those wanting to push the limits, however, modders have already broken into the game's code and made a mod that gives you access to things such as anti-aliasing, downscaling, and various other options. I'll link the mod in the description for those that are curious, but casual players don't need to worry about this. Controller support is the usual song and dance for PC ports, which is actually somewhat strange. The game supports keyboard and mouse controls and X input of all things. Players with PS3 or PS4 controllers will need to have Motion Joy installed and set it to 360 controller emulation. This is weird because Valkyria Chronicles was a PS3 game originally, yet they couldn't keep the PS3 controller drivers native to the game. You can rebind controls for keyboard and mouse and controllers, but it's done in a config menu outside of the game, so testing might be a bit awkward. The cool thing about this port, however, is that you could use all inputs at the same time and the game will swap between inputs as you use them. This may sound like an unnecessary luxury, but being able to use a controller for general movement and keyboard and mouse to fine-tune your aim really makes the game feel more fluid. It's unfortunate that fans of the Sony controller get such a bum rap on the PC, but aside from that the game's control scheme is really well done. From a technical standpoint, Valkyria Chronicles' PC port is a really strange entity. It performs well and works on a wide range of computers, but it still falls into the same bad habits that most console ports do nowadays. Despite its flaws, this port is much better than the PS3 version by a long shot, and it even comes with all the DLC for free. If you've never had the chance to play Valkyria Chronicles on release, now's as good a time as any with the PC port. For those wanting to push the limits, however, modders have already broken into the game's code and made a mod that gives you access to things such as anti-alias. Fuck.